Hey guys, in this video, I'm gonna be covering Albedo's support burst DPS potential. And in the next 7 to 8 minutes, I'm gonna be doing my best to help you decide whether or not you should roll for Albedo or just save your Primogen for other upcoming characters. I'm gonna be going over Albedo's skill, general playstyle, and I'll also be recommending his weapons and artifacts. I'll do my best to make this guide as free-to-play friendly as possible for those of you that got him from your saved Primogems. I included timestamps of the parts I'm gonna be covering about, but I still recommend watching the whole video because I'm gonna be providing some extra insights on Albedo. First, I'm gonna highlight Albedo's kit to give you guys an idea of what he is capable of doing. Then I'm gonna analyze the pros and cons of Albedo as a character and what he has to offer. Albedo's normal attack has the lowest base damage multiplier compared to his swordy counterparts. Of course, since we are building him mainly for burst and support in this guide, the damage multiplier of this skill doesn't really matter, so I'm not gonna go too in depth on the skill. Moving on, his elemental skill Solar Isotoma. Albedo stores his Geo Construct, which deals damage on appearance, then generates Transient Blossom, which deals AoE Geo damage that skills off Albedo's defense. Skilling off defense is kinda weird, and personally I wouldn't build him with defense solely for this skill unless you have Constellations. Otherwise, his elemental burst will do no damage. I'll probably make another video focusing on his elemental skill and a defense build once I get to play around with Albedo a bit. Transient Blossom can only be generated once every 2 seconds and when enemies take damage inside the range of the construct. To make it easier to understand, Albedo throws a Geo Flower, which deals damage on impact. Then, the enemy inside the range of the Geo Flower takes Geo damage every 2 seconds when they are damaged from a defense skilled Transient Blossom. There isn't really any characters that have this unique elemental skill, so I can't really compare his skill to other characters. Albedo's Elemental Burst Tectonic Tide deals AoE Geo damage to enemies. Also, if his elemental skill is on a field before you cast Tectonic Tide, then 7 Fatal Blossoms will be generated within the field, dealing AoE Geo damage. Considering Albedo's level 1 talent, if we include and add up all the Fatal Blossom damage, you get 871% damage multiplier. So if you happen to land all 7 Fatal Blossoms, Albedo's elemental burst damage is really scary. Alright, let's analyze some pros and cons. For pros, we see that his elemental skill and burst deals very high AoE damage with a 12-second cooldown and only need 40 energy charges. He also has a 30-second duration on Solar Isotoma. His passive talent, Homuncular Nature, is also a decent support passive. When Albedo uses his elemental burst, it increases the elemental mastery of nearby party members by 125 for 10 seconds. Since his elemental burst cooldown is 12 seconds, this buff essentially have a near 100% uptime if you can spam it. Oh, and he has an elevator for convenience. He also has this bonus passive when crafting weapon essential materials. He has a 10% chance to receive double the product, so maybe you can save some recents if RNG blesses you. For cons, since he is a Geo Elemental character, he doesn't fit in a lot of team comps since Geo Elements doesn't really resonate well with other elements. He also has a low normal attack damage modifier, again not really significant if you build him as a support. Transient Blossom scales with defense, which is very weird to focus on because his elemental burst damage will suffer if you build defense. His Geo Elevator has an internal cooldown, so you can't really rely on his plunge damage because it's too slow. What I mean is this, after I plunge down, the elevator doesn't reset immediately, you have to wait for a bit before the elevator goes up again. For Albedo's burst or support weapons, these 5 weapons are suitable for his role as a burst damage support. The Skyward Blade, Festering Desire, Favernous, Sacrificial, and Skyrider swords are all great options that can fit his role as a burst DPS. The Skyward Blade has a high base attack and energy recharge substat, so you can basically charge your elemental burst really fast, which makes it a perfect fit for Albedo. The bonus effect are pretty decent as well. If you have this weapon, using it on Albedo will provide great results. Next, the Festering Desire, which you can get from the new event, is also decent on Albedo. First, you can max refine it for free from the event, so you don't even need to hope RNG gives you the drops from bosses. I do have to say that this weapon is probably better if you focus more on defense, because the bonus stats cater towards his elemental skill. but since it's free, this weapon is acceptable on our current build if you have nothing else. Lefavnius Sword is also another alternative you can utilize on Albedo. In addition to its energy recharge substat, crit hit have a chance to generate elemental orbs, which is a nice bonus effect to have to recharge your elemental burst faster. If you have a sacrificial sword, you can also use it on Albedo for the energy recharge substat, but the weapon bonus effects doesn't really benefit Albedo since you can only have one solar isotoma constructed on the field. If you don't have or want to use the 4-star weapons, a 3-star option is the Skyrider sword. It also has energy recharge as a secondary stat, which is a budget option compared to the 4-star weapons. For Albedo's artifacts, I suggest the bread and butter for high burst and support type characters, which is the Noblest Oblige 4 set. Basically, you pop Albedo's elemental skill and then his elemental burst to generate the 7 fatal blossoms, switch off for that 20% attack bonus. With his passive homuncular nature, you also get an increase in elemental mastery by 125 for 10 seconds. I'll also repeat what I said earlier, since his elemental burst cooldown is 12 seconds, you can almost keep in 100% uptime on this buff. You can also go for a 2-set Noblest, 2-set Archaic if you don't want to focus solely on his elemental burst damage. The 15% geo damage gives a nice little boost to Albedo's elemental skills kit as well. A 4-set Archaic is also an option for the 35% damage through crystallization reaction, which increases your main DPS's damage. The recommended stats to aim for is crit rate or damage on hat, geo damage on goblet, attack on the rest except for the flower. You probably want to aim for defense on substats and maybe one energy recharge line if you can't spam your elemental burst. Hopefully this video helped you decide if you want to roll Albedo or not. If you still can't decide, I have another video follow up soon, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. If you find this video helpful, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next one.